Madeline was our gift, our beautiful, glorious, joyful gift. And she was such a love. And she was inquisitive, imaginative, compassionate, so loving, sensitive, a little shy. I just remember her, even as a young child, being enraptured by nature and loving to learn about how the trees grow and the leaves come and the change of seasons. And she was a very special child, our special child. It was the song in my heart. And this time of year, I still remember her with the Christmas decorations. We would get the Christmas decorations out, and she would want to play with them for a couple days, and you would hear her out in the living room and just flying around with the wolves, and she loved animals. So each Christmas she picked out an ornament, and they were always animals. The very first one was a wolf. So this sweet little blonde girl, she just loved her animals. And then after a couple days of playing, she would say, "Okay, let's decorate now."
She had very big plans about her future, which is just another reason why it's so devastating to have lost her.
She had just gotten back from an internship in Barcelona, and she'd been away for a semester abroad. And she was in Boulder she decided she needed to get a job because she didn't need that many credits for senior year. And so she was down there, and I still don't know exactly what happened that week, but they were having a party, and I think there were 6 of them, and they all took these Xanax. And back then we didn't know, no one had really heard of illicit fentanyl, and just medicinal. And there were 6 of them, and Madeline was the only one that died that night in her bed. And I found out about it in the most god-awful way. And and we really never really found out what happened from the other kids. Their stories varied, but we do know that the one guy that she was with, had he known the signs of fentanyl, had he known about Narcan, and had he not been afraid, if he'd known about the Good Samaritan law, Madeline would be alive today. But he didn't know any of those things, and I think he was scared of getting in trouble, and he left her.
Yeah, so we should make clear, Maddie was a student at CU in Boulder, Colorado. And she was going into her senior year. She was 21. And that night she was with a a group of friends and acquaintances, as Susan described. I think all of them were somehow they got a half dozen fake Xanax pills. They didn't know they were fake. They thought they were real. From a neighbor. They bought them. They paid for them with Venmo. Maddie got the one that had fentanyl in it. And she died in her bed. And this other student was with her and left her. In the morning, I perhaps thought she was snoring, but she was dying. And because he was not familiar with the signs of a fentanyl poisoning. But snoring is part of it as your breathing shuts down because the drug relaxes your central nervous system. So he left to go to work thinking that she was snoring, and she died shortly after that and was not found for another 12 or 14 hours till some friends wondered why she wasn't responding to their text messages and calls, and they finally went over to check on her. So that, and then we heard that news almost another 12 hours after that the next morning. So, to the point about Narcan and knowledge of the signs of an overdose. Unfortunately, the times we live in now, naloxone, Narcan, is the new first aid kit. It's nothing to be afraid of. Everyone should have it. As I think back on what happened to Maddie, at that time, I wanted to make sure we did everything we could so that when we look back on what happened, we wouldn't feel we left some stone unturned. And by that I mean following the process with law enforcement, with the court system, with all of our judicial apparatus to the extent that we could. That process took 2 years. It took a lot of energy. We didn't realize how lucky we were at the time that the County of Boulder dedicated resources to our case, to investigating it, and to pursuing it, convening a grand jury, and going to court to prosecute the individual who sold the fake pharmaceuticals to my daughter and her friends, which they did do. So that was part of the healing journey as well, as hard as that was. I would also say to anyone else in a similar position today, you can ask for a victim's advocate to help you. We've now been thinking about this for 6 years. I miss my daughter terribly. I wish she was still here and we didn't have to do this. But the fact is that over 100,000 young Americans are dying every year right now. It's only going up every year. It's an incredibly difficult problem for our country to deal with. There are many people working on this issue in law enforcement, in the government, at the state level, but it's a very, very tough issue. So the best thing you can do is to know about this, to talk about it, to be aware. And by being aware, I mean, take a look at the movie on YouTube called Dead on Arrival, which is a fentanyl story, which is all about grieving parents talking about their children that they miss. There are hundreds of documentaries, movies, and news stories on this topic. And yet what strikes me is how very little people know about it. And I don't understand why it's not receiving more attention. And I think the reason is there's a stigma around drugs and overdoses and addiction that goes back decades. And so people's eyes tend to gloss over that news because they think, well, drugs have no part of my life. But this is a different world now, and it's unfortunately more dangerous. And the best defense we have is to read about it and talk about it and just be aware of what's going on. You know, we continue doing this, but it feels like we're a kite in a hurricane. Not just us, but every family who's lost a child to this fentanyl issue, the one pill kill. People still don't know enough about it. So I'm saying pay attention and look at what's happening. Do a quick Google search on fentanyl poisoning and you'll be shocked at how much material is out there to look at that you probably have not seen before.